got to figure out what that notification is. Okay, let's just check that we're live. We have a little tech delay every single Friday. But I think we should be live. One moment. Here we go. Yeah, we are live.
Yeah, hurrah.
We should be. I can't see why not. Yeah, we're live. Right. Welcome to the VA Live Lounge. Today, we're going to just be talking off the cuff about our real life experiences, sharing maybe some home truths about what it's like to be a virtual assistant and the experience that we've had, good and bad. So the good, bad and the ugly. And you know, I think it's so interesting because when you're a VA, you get to work with such a diverse range of people. You do end up exposed to some really wacky situations, don't you? How long have you been a VA, Kirsty?
This will be my 4th year as a VA, and I've come across some very interesting people.
That's putting it politely, isn't it? And anyone that tunes in, I'd love to hear your experiences as well. Anything that you can share that would just be so funny, or just so interesting to hear what your experiences have been. So let's talk about then the early days starting out. Like, I think our experiences are very, very different because you kind of, which you can share in a moment, but you kind of started your business with a client ready to go, didn't you? And I didn't. I started by joining as an associate for a large organisation. And I always remember the very first client I landed. I mean, really, I look back now and I think, God, I did not know what I was doing. You know, back in the day where you say you can do anything and everything and you really can't. And she was like this. She was up her own arse, to be honest. And she was like, I can't say what her title was, but she was the queen of something. She wasn't literally a queen, it was the queen of this particular industry. She had great pleasure in telling me, I'm known as the queen of so-and-so. And she wanted like some work doing, but it was so difficult straight off the bat with her because just her attitude, you know, she just felt so much about herself. And I did make mistakes in that one, but I learned a lot. And I think actually it was worth, I'm glad I got that out of the way with that type of person.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because when I first started out, I did have a client lined up, and it was a big hourly contract for the month. And you know, you're so keen, you're like a little puppy, like I can do it, anything, and you're almost kind of setting yourself up for a fall sometimes with specific clients. And you know, and I didn't even know what an associate, if you could be an associate VA when I first started. I had no idea until I started bombarding you weekly with emails. Hello, it's me again. But yeah, I didn't know you could be, that was such a thing. And I think I didn't really understand what a virtual assistant was. And actually, my first client was my previous employer who made me redundant. And he actually said to me, you should do this freelance. And I thought, yeah, you've dicked me around and broken my heart, and I've given my heart and soul to you. And now you've made me redundant. I'm going to work as hard for myself as I did for you and nobody else. So I kind of went into it thinking, yeah, this is really like great. This is brilliant. Like, I'm earning some good money and I know this person, I know their business inside out. So there wasn't a lot for me to learn because I already knew the business. But I think when you start working with somebody that you don't know their business is when you go, crap in hell, this is frightening, mate. This is terrifying. And the next person I worked with was a nightmare.
Really?
Yeah, awful, just awful. It would be constant WhatsApp messages, constant emails, like text messages would come through. So we had like 3 or 4 different platforms of communication. When, you know, if you're starting out and you're talking to a new client, agree on one platform to communicate on, because if you've got an email coming through and they're WhatsApping you and texting you and calling you, you'll get lost. Things will get lost, mistakes will be made. So agree that very, very early on. WhatsApp is the best one because you can get a notification straight away. But yeah, she knocked my confidence massively.
I think the thing is, right, in those early days, I think you do make a lot of mistakes. Look, now I could look back in hindsight and say, because at the time I was probably more defensive, but now I could look back in hindsight and say, actually, some of that was my fault. But there's this real divide in the VA community about what you should and shouldn't do. And some VAs feel that you should stay in your lane, only know what you know, and don't really progress yourself, like in the sense of you shouldn't take on work if you don't know how to do it. But I'm of the firm mind that if you're good at learning, if you can pick things up quickly, if you have an aptitude to learn and you know that you can get things, then you should just take that. I do think you should say, look, yeah, I can have a go at that. I can't do it, but I'll learn to do it. And at least be honest with the client. The amount of things I learned from YouTube and the amount of things that I learn over time, that if I had said, no, I can only do this, I would not be a tech VA now. I wouldn't be who I am now. So I do think it's worth doing that, but you're going to probably make a lot of mistakes at the beginning, which is kind of why, in some ways, I think when you first start out, you should start out as not necessarily an associate of a small VA agency, because you could really do some damage, but bigger corporations, bigger companies that can afford it, I think, yes, start there and make your mistakes under someone else's brand before you do it under your own.
Oh yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, if I look back at my skill set when I first started doing this, was very, it was very broad anyway in terms of what I could do. But if I compare that to what I do now, it's like worlds apart. Yeah. I would never have put myself down as, I would never ever put myself as a tech VA, because there is no way in the world I could ever. But I've learned so much in terms of like social media. So I do loads of social media creation for clients now, and I've like learned how to schedule stuff and what works, what doesn't, and like when to post and that kind of thing. But you do have to take that chance, because if you don't take that chance, you're never going to learn. And if I'd have done that, I probably wouldn't be a VA now. I'd probably be back in employment working for some dickhead who takes the piss out of me every live long day. So you've got to take that chance, because if you don't, you're never going to learn.
No, it's true. And there's somebody, a burden shared, has said, this is literally me now, so new at this. What have your experiences been? Just drop those in the comments. And it is about feeling like in the beginning your confidence can be knocked, because you said, because you do make lots of mistakes, and it's worse if you get nightmare clients, because you kind of think they're all going to be like that, but they're not. And actually, I've got some clients that have been with me now for years and years and years, and they are the loveliest people. They care about you. They send you gifts, like at Christmas. And so you have to kind of work your way through the bad ones to get to the good, don't you? You can't be put off by the nightmare clients.
The problem you have is when you first start out, and if you do get a nightmare client, the second or third one, it does knock your confidence, and it takes a certain type of person to be able to go, well, I don't really, okay, I've made a mistake, moving on. And I'm not one of those people. You know me better than anybody in the world. And I do take things personally. If I make a mistake, I feel horrendously bad about it. I'd always admit to it, but I would never, I would always feel bad about it. But the problem is that you have to sort of be a bit thicker skinned, because if you let that person get to you, you'll just regress back and you'll just go, I can't do this. And that's what happened to me. I can't do this. This is not for me. It reduces you so much that you just have that fear of, I can't do this. And you've got to just ride through it.
Do you think that's what put you off? Like, because you've only recently, 4 years in, started doing social media. Do you think that's what put you off progressing yourself sooner, because you had your confidence knocked and you felt like you wouldn't be good enough and you wouldn't be able to do that?
Yeah, kind of, to a certain point, but I think it's because I'd never done it before as well. And I think when you don't understand or know how to do something like that, you do think, well, I've never been really a great drawer or graphic designer or, that kind of thing. So you just automatically dismiss it. But until you actually start doing it, I actually really enjoy it. Like, I love doing all the graphics and stuff, and like all the reels. Is that right? Reels?
Yeah.
And I love doing all of that. So I would never have thought I could do it, because I've never done it before. So if you don't try, you're never going to know. You might try something, hate it, think, never doing that again. We've got loads of EAs that won't do social media because they just don't like it. Doesn't mean that you can't do other stuff technical, just you don't do social media.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you should have a go at different things and find what you enjoy and what you like, because you do want to do work that you're gonna like doing. A Bird and Shared said it's really trying. He is really just trying to get clients. To be honest, I've worked with some nightmares before in full-time employment, but I'd probably tolerate it now if they came to me. And I think having thicker skin and just going for it is great advice. I don't think you should tolerate nightmare clients. The thing is, when you first start out, you feel like you have to. It's only once you've gone down that road and you've got experience and you don't feel so desperate for clients that you start to say, do you know what? I'm not going to put up with this.
Me.
And you really can meet some horrible people. And I think it is a mistake you make in the beginning. Like, I took on clients that, oh my God, let's talk about some of these clients. It's Becca, should have put that. Hi, Becca. So one of the worst clients I've had.
I know what you're going to talk about.
I'm not going to mention names. This was someone who came to me, and it was like, you can't believe some of the things that happen with some of these clients. This person, the thing is, you have to have your own integrity, your own values as well. And I do think you need to have clients that align with that. So this client in particular was like kind of like a kept daddy's girl, you know, lived in London, was really, could float about, could like have a go at anything, but acted like everything was a struggle, but still was being, you know, funded by dad that lived in another country, and was someone who clearly had issues. I realised over time, whether they were, I don't know, neurodivergent or whether it was to do with mental health, I'm not sure, but you know, things weren't right. And this would be someone who would contact you at all hours of the day. It didn't matter you know, whether it was a weekend or evening, ask for advice on boys, talk about her sex life, talk about whether she should sleep with somebody or not. And then when you would try to guide that person back to the reason they've took you on, which is, you know, you want me to help you get a job, you want me to help you do this, then it would all be your fault that those things weren't happening. And the thing you've said about communication, having one method of communication, I think is a major problem with clients, because I've just literally like broke up with a client over this very issue where so many things were missed because some were on email, some were on Trello, some were on WhatsApp. It's impossible to track all of that. And this person was the same. And in the end, we had that many arguments about he said, she said. I just said, I'm not working with you anymore. And she's like a boomerang because she keeps coming back. And then, you know, kind of got rid. And I did think, well, maybe it's a me issue. Maybe it's my tolerance levels of that client, because I've got to a point now where I will not accept working with people like that. But at the time, I felt desperate. I felt like, oh, I need the money, so I'm going to have to work with this person. But I reached breaking point where it was like, you know what? I can't do it even for the money. I just can't do it. She came back eventually, and I thought maybe she'd be a good fit for you.
Yeah, thanks.
And you know, I was honest with you about what she was like, but I thought, well, maybe it's me. Maybe it's my tolerance.
It was not. and more for me, after I finished working for the first time, I then went back twice more and worked with her again. And then she came back to us very recently and said, can we work together? And I just went, absolutely not.
Yeah. We had, I mean, literally, didn't she say to wake up in France and ask you why she was there? Because you
she said to me on one day, book me a ticket to Paris. I want to go to Paris. I want to go and live in Paris and work in Paris. So I said, that's a really bad idea. You've got nowhere to stay. Do you want me to book you a hotel? No, I'll be fine. Okay, fine. All right, book the ticket. Off she goes. Rings me the next day. I've woken up in Paris and I have no idea why. And I'm like, you told me to send you to Paris. I did say to you, you've got nowhere to stay. She was like, well, can you get me home? I'm like, yeah, but what was I did tell you. It was one of those, when you look back on it now, it's almost funny. But at the time, it was like, because she was my second or third, it was like, what on earth is going on here? Like, I don't know what to do with her. Like, it was just so erratic. But now it's funny. But at the time, it really wasn't. And I've worked with that client that you were just talking about a minute ago as well. And it's not me or you.
Yeah,
It's definitely them.
Yeah. Oh God, it's this is the thing, but you do learn not to tolerate it. And I think if I could go back in time, and I'm going to ask you this question: if you could go back in time and know what you know now, even though you were trying to get going in your business, even though you really needed the clients and the money, would you have taken those clients on?
That's a tricky one for me, because the first client I'd worked with for so long, so I knew the business. But no, if I'd have known the second and third, and even the fourth, really, how they turned out, they were just erratic. And I think a lot of the problem is that clients don't realize that you have other clients.
Yeah.
And I think that they generally think that you're just sitting there waiting for them to either email, WhatsApp, however form of communication. And when you're not readily available to jump on that message within 30 seconds of receiving it, that's when that starts, that whole blah, blah, blah. So if I could look back now at myself and go, would you work with that client? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd work with the first one to get because it was a high hourly client,
yeah,
to get my feet and to get me out there. But the others, no. And now I've got a lush bank of clients. All my clients are lovely. I love working with all of them. They're all so grateful, and like a couple of them every single Friday send me a voice note saying, thanks so much for your help, it's been amazing this week, have a brilliant weekend. And which seems like a really small thing, but to me means so much to me. It means that I've made a difference to their business.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm on your page. I wouldn't have taken those people on.
No,
I look back now and I think there's no way. And my advice to any VA starting out is, I know it's really difficult because all you want is clients, but you have to take on the right clients from day one. Because what you have to remember is, if you don't, and you don't have that thick skin, and you do end up with nightmare clients early doors, it will probably destroy your confidence. It will probably give you a bad view of what all clients are like. It might make you give up and go back to employment. And it has a massive impact on your mental health. It really, really does impact you. And you might think working remotely gives you some sort of safety and protection, but it doesn't, because that person can reach you on your phone, every time you open your laptop, you're going to be worried. Every time you look at your phone, you're going to be worried. It isn't worth it. It isn't worth it. What would you say are the warning signs to look out for a nightmare client?
Constant messaging, literally constant messaging. And the thing to remember is if when you're working with these nightmare clients, you're not freeing up your time to work with nice clients.
Exactly.
So don't feel like you have to take on these nightmare clients. Go with your gut. I'm a massive gut feeling person, but the red flags would be constant messages. Why haven't you answered me? Constant phone calls. Would just be establish the boundaries first off. That's the key, I think.
Yeah.
Because I used to do that with my first client. I was terrified of looking at my WhatsApp. I was terrified. It would be bank holidays, weekends, constant phoning. And because I didn't establish those boundaries, and it will reduce your confidence and it will make you feel rubbish.
Yeah.
And you don't, but red flags, messages, constant.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say that as well, but also people that are quite demanding and they want everything yesterday. That kind of client's going to become more difficult to handle, because they're never going to understand that you work with other clients as well. So I do think that you're right. And also erratic behaviour, where they do communicate through many different channels to get hold of you. Because what that does is, it means that you then spend your time reading all these messages instead of actually working on their work, and they don't seem to get that. So I think you're right. Like, red flags is definitely that. But anyone who tries to knock you down on price, if you're having an initial call with someone and they talk about money, we've had people that before we've even started working with them, after they've signed up, they've immediately started saying, what's the next steps? What's happening? You haven't told me anything. And yet they've literally had onboarding emails. That relationship shouldn't even get off the starting ground. You just know they're going to be demanding. So I think demanding, anyone that's quite demanding in that way, they're going to become a real problem. And you can't get gaslighted. Some clients make everything sound like it's your fault. So if you're getting this, why haven't you done this? But you know that you've been waiting for the client to maybe give you information, or you're stalled because they haven't met their end of what they've got to do, but they're blaming you. That's a massive red flag, I think, and you can never win. The amount of clients I've had like that, and you can't win. And the thing is, you think in the early days that you're going to be able to change that. You're going to be able to manage it. You're going to be able to control it. You're going to get them to see, but you can't. You won't. You never will.
No, and the thing is also as well is that, you know, when that does happen, if you do make a mistake and they do reprimand you, fair enough, that's fine. But what it unfortunately does with a client like that who is so demanding is you end up second guessing everything, right? So a simple thing that you would have done with your eyes shut before you started working with this client that's what happened to me. I used to do something simple, would take me 2 hours to do it because I would check it and check it and check it and check it, and I became obsessed. That was all done off the clock. So while I was double checking everything, but also as well, with experience, when you're having your initial call with a potential client, you will get the feeling what that client is like. Now I've learned that I do all the new client calls unless I'm not available. And recently we had a call with somebody, and she was just horrible, and I just knew straight away that she just wasn't right for our business, and I would never have matched her. I wouldn't want to work with her, and I would never have matched her with any of our team because I know she would have been a nightmare client. Now that will come with experience. You'll go with your gut. You'll know which people are nice, which people you want to work with, but just bear in mind that those people that are going to knock you down on price, be rude and mean to you on your initial call, are not the people that you want to work with, despite the fact you're desperate for clients and desperate for cash. It's got to be right.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, if you say yes, you're saying no to a potential dream client because your capacity is not available for them. I do think if I had like a manual for new VAs, so they don't have to make the mistakes we've made, it would definitely be: do not take on clients that you think are going to be nightmares just for the money. It's just not worth your sanity, is it?
No, it's not. And it will affect your mental health.
Yeah, it will. And then so the other thing is, and we talk a lot about this because it is a passionate subject of mine, is charging up front. And you did end up in a nightmare situation because you didn't charge up front, did you, to begin with?
No.
And then you didn't get paid.
No, so when I didn't even realise paying. Obviously, I knew pro forma from previous employment, but I didn't realise that was a thing you could do being a virtual assistant. So I just did a invoice at the end of the month, paid within 7 days. Which from the beginning, I knew it was a nightmare anyway, because when I was in employment, I was never paid on time anyway, and it was always a case of having to ask to be paid, which was just a nightmare in terms of mortgage payments, rent, that kind of thing. So I kind of thought it might be different. So within a couple of months, payments were late. They were kind of 7 days, 10 days, chasing the whole time, not being able to get in contact. And then I became the annoying person, ringing, emailing, WhatsApping, text messaging, because I was having to find funds to pay my mortgage because he was my only client at the time. So I was so reliant on that income that it basically was I make it or break it sort of situation. And every month I'd provide a report, exactly what I've worked on. And I'm probably bigging myself up, but I'm quite an honest person. I would never try and fiddle or whatever. And he used to query the report all the time. And in the end, I was owed nearly £1,000, and I never got that £1,000. And it was just it became quite a toxic relationship. And and sometimes now I think, if he ever came back, I'd just be so proud to go, absolutely no way do I work with you again. Not a chance.
But part of the problem, the reason that happened to you, is because you didn't have packages, did you? You just had as many hours as he wanted. And to me, there's so many issues with that, because I always say this kind of analogy where, let's say you've got a client called John, and John does 10 hours 1 month and 20 hours next month and 20 hours a month after, and then 10. Technically, you've always got to keep 20 hours available for John, which means 10 hours. If he only does 10 hours in 1 month, you've just kept 10 hours available for free. So packages, and that's why it makes it so difficult to charge up front, because you don't know how many hours they're going to use. Whereas if you charge packages, at least that way, if you just said to this client, okay, you can have a 40-hour a month package, if you'd have gone under that, then you could have a policy that's use it or lose it, or it could have rolled over. If you'd have gone over it, then you could have stopped work and said your time's run out, so you need to add more time. And my advice would be to any VA starting out, please do not charge on invoice, please charge up front. And I think that's what you do now, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I think the thing of it is all of this comes with experience, because had I know what I know now about the process and how we work with clients, you know, I could have actually said that to him. I'm banking 60 hours for you a month. You're only using 30. That's 30 hours I can't allocate to somebody else because I don't know if you're going to need them or not. But again, it's experience, isn't it? I'd have never even thought about that back then.
Yeah.
I would never even entered my mind. But you have to charge up front, because you'll only end up in a situation where you either don't get paid, you've got to chase. We had it recently with one of our VAs where she hadn't been paid for an invoice over 100 quid. Right? It doesn't matter what the amount is, it's still your time and your money. And I made the call and she got paid within about...
So funny. Should we share that story, Kirsty? But before we do, Becky just said she's so glad that we're touching on this. Setting up packages and getting that right is tough. And it is tough, but part of the, well, it isn't actually. Part of the problem is that part of the issue is some VAs feel scared to charge up front. They feel like the clients won't pay. We have never, ever, ever, ever had a client query paying up front. It's just not an issue. You have to trust in yourself and you have to be quite firm and steadfast in your approach. People will pay, so don't worry about that. So yeah, so Kirsty, that was a funny story. Let's share what happened there.
So every last Friday of every month, we always have, we call it Final Friday Coffee and a Chat, where we all get together with all of our VA associates and we just sort of update them on what's happening in the, you know, behind the scenes, and like we just make sure everybody's all right, do they need anything, and it's just nice for us to get together. And one of our VAs had a problem with a client who she'd done work with and she hadn't been paid because she pays on invoice. And she was really worried about it. She was quite upset about it as well, I think, because she didn't feel confident enough to challenge. She'd sent a couple of emails, but she hadn't felt confident enough to phone or, you know, demand money. So I said, send it over to me. I'll make the call. So after that, she sent me the stuff. Are you sure? I was like, absolutely fine. Phoned this client of hers up, left her a pleasantish sort of email, and within 6-7 minutes she paid that invoice.
Yeah, amazing result. And that's kind of because you didn't have to you was like credit control in that person's business. I think that's like, I always think the VA industry is very supportive of one another. If you can buddy up, even if you're not working with associates, but if you can partner up with another VA where you can pass work back and forth if you're on holiday, but also you can act as one another's credit control. So if it doesn't pay, although this should not be happening because you should be charging up front, then one of you can call the other's client, because it's easier when you're doing it for someone else and you're not doing it for your own clients. And that was a brilliant result for you to do that. But you've done that for us as well. Like, you're kind of like dog-eared, aren't you? You're relentless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hate anything like that, because that's happened to me before, and I felt like I couldn't then, because like you gave me the best advice. You were like, just tell him it's going to have to be up front now. And I was so scared to do that, because again, I was so reliant on that income that I didn't want to upset the apple cart. But you have to have that conversation. At the end of the day, you're protecting yourself and your family, because at the end, you know, I always say to people, would you go to Tesco's, do a food shop and say, I'll pay you next week, or I'll pay you when I can? No, you would not. As stupid as that sounds, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, 100%. There's no excuse for it. There's no reason why you can't charge up front. And we always say, like, and you have to have, this is where you have to have a robust contract, like a robust client agreement. So it's all laid out. It's why your onboarding needs to be so robust as well. So you need to make sure that you're telling clients right from the off what to expect. I mean, one of the things that we do is when clients book an initial call, they answer why they're booking the call. So they have like a tick box of which service they're interested in. And based on that answer, let's say it's our Simply Admin service, they will get an email through automation that says, this is what to expect, this is how much it costs, and if you're not ready to sign up, cancel the call now, because we don't want to waste our time with people that aren't going to be ready. So I think, like you say, though, all of this comes with confidence and experience, and getting yourself to a point where, not necessarily that you've got loads of money coming in so you can afford to turn people away, but that your integrity comes first, and the way you care about yourself comes first. So you are willing to turn that work away. And you're quite right. You know, we've had some weird situations, haven't we, in the past? I mean, I'm going to share like one of the weirdest situations that I've had, and it wasn't a client of ours. I was working for this other company at the time as an associate, and I'd been asked initially to do like a one-off trial work with her, attending a meeting. And it was a meeting where she was here overseas, and she was a princess from a Far Eastern country.
Oh my God, I remember this.
And she was attending a UK university on I don't know, education visa or whatever it is. And I was asked to like take some minutes of the meeting, and I remember thinking, "Oh, this is weird." And then suddenly, like the dean, whoever she was with, was like, "Are you recording this?" And she's saying, "Yes, I'm recording this." And she said, "Well, you can't record it without asking permission." And that was my first introduction to her. A few months later, she came back, really liked working with Lisa. I'd like her to work with me again. And this time it was graduation time was coming up, and she wanted me to help her arrange this party. And you take everything at face value as well, because it's come from a legitimate company, and the university itself are also addressing this person in the same way. She's given like, oh my God, she was the most demanding person. It was unbelievable, like we've just said about demanding. And she wanted me to help her throw this party at the Marriott, so I had to arrange all of these meetings. I had to make sure that the emails were like HRH or whatever, Her Royal Highness, Princess so-and-so. I had all these contacts. So I had to literally contact like the UK, the representatives of the UK monarchy, representatives of the monarchy in, I think, is it Switzerland or somewhere like that, Sweden, one of those countries, royalty from all over the world. And obviously no one was saying they're coming. So that was kind of the first red flag. Then she wanted mum and dad, the king and queen, had to be collected. It had to be in a really nice limousine. All that had to be organised. Then she needed bodyguards for the ceremony, for the graduation ceremony, a bulletproof car, armed. I mean, honestly, it's just got more and more ridiculous by the day. And at some point, she'd asked me about whenever I noticed that, because then she wanted to sue the university as well, because they hadn't done this, that, and the other. And she wanted me to get lawyers involved. So I was getting lawyers involved. But whenever it came to payment, suddenly that conversation would close down. And I started to think, oh my God, I don't think this person is really who they're saying they are. And I'm really concerned that they're going to rip some of these people off. And I'd already got the limo driver. He'd gone down to London. He picked her mum and dad up. And I spoke to him on the phone, and he said she was so like rude, and she wouldn't move out the car till he opened the door and that. He said, when I went in to greet her mum and dad, they were the most normal people. And the dad just opened the door himself and sat down. And he said it was really bizarre. Now, luckily, he got paid. But I had also got a photographer that I knew to go and be the photographer at the ceremony. And then, oh my God, there was going to be like, ambassadors of the university. We're going to be meeting. She was demanding that they be there to sit with her mum and dad. Her mum and dad were going to have us dinner with them after. And I just thought, you know what? I've got this horrible feeling that something's not right here, and she's not going to pay these people, and this just doesn't feel right. I started to do as much digging as I could, and I just could not find any reference to this bloody princess royal family. So I eventually contacted the university the day before the ceremony, and I said, I've got this bad feeling that everybody's been hoodwinked. And they said, well, we've just come out of a meeting and we think the same. And she'd been there for 4 years under this title of princess. And then they basically had to like apprehend her on the day of the ceremony, because she was causing such a nightmare, and say, you are a liar and you are not who you're saying you are. And oh my God, it was just such a nightmare. But I remember going back to that company I was working with and saying to them, you can't give these kind of clients, you've got to do more checks.
Yeah.
Do more checks. You can't just be taking people on. Because at one point she'd asked me to use my bank card, and I was like, no. And that's another thing you should really watch out for. And I was like, you really do need to do some sort of check. And actually, that's a valid point, because, I mean, we as VAs background check our clients in that way. I suppose we do like a cursory check of their socials and their website. But how can you be really sure that someone is who they say they are, and they're going to be safe to work with or for. They're not going to be getting you to do anything dodgy. Like, how can you be sure of that?
Well, it's a funny thing, just touching on that, because last week I had a phone call, and it's through our AMS system, so you'll be able to hear it from this guy, and he basically said he wanted somebody, he couldn't read or write, and he said, I want someone to read my emails, reply to my emails, and do like contracts and stuff. So I do what I normally do. No, that's absolutely fine. Like, what sort of business you in? I think he said he was in like sales or something, which I found odd. Anyway, so my brain straight away, because I've got the experience, went, this is something not right here. Anyway, the conversation goes on. I talk to him about the packages and what the pricing is. Oh yeah, that's absolutely fine. He comes back and says, I want somebody that I can visit. And I just went, we don't do that, because we just be so careful with this type of client. I'm not saying that there will all be, nightmare meeting in person, but it's just something that we just advise VAs not to do. If you do have to do it, make it in a public place, tell somebody where you're going, give them an address, even maybe take somebody with you, but do not visit clients' houses. Don't allow them to visit your house, because straight away I said, we don't offer that service, unfortunately. We are virtual, so we can do everything virtually. You just need to give us blah, 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 blah. He said, oh, that's not for me, then slammed the phone down. Within 15 minutes, he phoned back. Oh, I'm looking for someone, blah, blah, blah. Same conversation. And I said, I just spoke to you a minute ago. And he just slammed the phone down. So I knew within a minute of that phone call that was dodgy.
Yeah.
And that's good experience.
Yeah.
So just like be very careful if people ask to meet you in person, or go to their house, whatever. It's absolute red flag.
It is a red flag. And we had an associate, didn't we, that had an experience like that. They did go to meet a client and it didn't end well, did it?
No, it didn't. No, it went very badly.
Yeah, so that's something to be really, really. I mean, I've met loads of my clients face to face, but only because we happen to have been in the same city or town at some point because they're on holiday, and then we've said, oh, let's meet up, and it's always been like at a cafe or somewhere like that, and it's been a really pleasant experience. But if I had like you've just said, a call, and they want an in-person, it's not necessarily dodgy that you want an in-person PA, but if you set yourself up as a virtual assistant because you want to be remote and you want to work from anywhere, don't tie yourself down by then being based in an office or something. But yes, be mindful about saying if they want to meet you face to face, because you've got a question, haven't you? Why do
that's what I said. That's what I said. I said, well, it's not necessary. I said, we're virtual assistants, so we can support people nationwide and internationally. And he was like, oh, I want somebody based in this place. And I was like, yeah, we've got somebody, but we don't do an in-person because we just don't.
And we should touch on that, because actually most VAs are female, and we have had dodgy men who have called and,
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So can you remember some of the experiences?
Yeah. So I can remember we had somebody based far, far away, and he said to his VA that he would pay her £4,000 or dollars, whatever, to fly her out there to take minutes in a meeting. He paid for her flight, her accommodation, everything. And she, being savvy, said, no, that's not something I do. Because why would you need to? With the technology we've got these days, you can do anything. Look at us now. You're right up there and I'm down in Devon.
Yeah.
So, you don't need to be in person for anything.
No, not at all. And you can end up in really, I mean, something. So we had a client as well. This was an overseas client, and he only wanted women on the team, didn't he? And they had to have a certain title within his business, didn't they? And I think that's okay. So there was like a bit of a fine line there of what you have to. So although you can be anything, so if you're a virtual assistant, but that doesn't have to be a title. You could be office manager or operational business support, or whatever that client wants to give you. But you have to be very, very wary when they start to maybe be putting you in roles where there could be legality issues.
Yeah.
You could be liable for things. So there is that as well to be mindful of. And I think we've sometimes come across people like that and thought, this doesn't feel quite right.
But don't feel like you can't say that. If you feel uncomfortable in any situation, if you don't feel comfortable having a specific title or being in a setting that you don't feel comfortable or anything like that, then be confident enough to say that, because you've got to look after yourself as well. I know that, you know, you're trying to build a business, you want to get clients, but you have to put safety first, because you could end up in a situation like we had where it could, you know, it could go pretty wrong.
And I think you have to think about your future brand, because in those early days, you could take on clients that don't really align with you, your vision, your mission, and then that might come back and bite you in the backside one day when you're out there and you've built yourself up. All it takes is someone to do some digging and say, well, actually, back then you worked for this client. I mean, one of the early clients I had in the very beginning through this other agency was an evangelist, which is, you know, Christians who preach the name of the Lord, and they do it at big sporting events all over the world as well as in the US. But they did a lot of preaching outside abortion clinics, and so a lot of the associates got very uncomfortable working with this guy and didn't support those beliefs, so they wouldn't work with him. When he came to me, my job was really to do like social media and things like that. But even the same for me, I got to that point where I'm not going to be comfortable supporting you, you know, doing protests and preaching outside abortion clinics. So then you start to think, one day, if I ended up doing that just for the money, that's not something I support. So one day that can come back and that can bite me on the backside. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
thinking about it's actually really thinking about that client on a deeper level. Like, what is their business? What do they do? Is it something you support? You know, for example, one of the things I don't do anymore, and I did, but I don't now that I understand it, is I don't buy from Shein and Temu. And the reason is because it's fast fashion. They you know, their workers are not taken care of. There's child labour going on, and I don't want to support that. And so what you can't do is have those kind of ethics, but then work with a client that doesn't, or work with a client that doesn't align with those ethics. So really think about who you are, really think about what you are comfortable with, and actually make sure you're doing some research on that client and does that align with you. Because if you're going to build a brand, and let's say you're going down this route of telling people, you know, you're ethically minded or you're this, that, and the other, but then someone doesn't dig in and finds out, well, you know, when you first started out, you threw all those ethics out the window. That can really do some damage to your reputation as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think, you know, it's not, there's no, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you do have to think about the future, and if you end up working with somebody that's got really poor ethics and they're shouting about you on social media and what you know, the support you're doing for them, that attachment will always be there. You know, you know, it will always be an attachment to you. So, you know, somebody researching you will go onto your profile, see that you're attached to this, for example, that, you know, this preacher, will just turn people off straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, we've had some of the funniest people. I remember doing some work in the early days for a company that was setting up a sex shop, and they needed help setting that up. It's so they think, oh yeah, that's just us in marketing for dildos.
What? That must have been the most weirdest discovery call ever. So what's your business?
Yeah,
we're into dildos and weird stuff.
But you do end up like really being exposed to such a wide variety of people and businesses. But yeah, I mean, have you got any funny stories?
I don't think so. Mine have just been a bit weird, I think.
Yeah.
I think that I had one. I did have one guy, and he was so nice, and I would work with him again because he was lovely. But he liked the flirty side.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and it's awful, isn't it? But I used to like talking to him because he was very complimentary towards me, and he used to love me talking to him. He'd always say, "Just run the clock," which I did. And we just chat about the world and what's going on. And he had a wife and kids and all that. But he was really sweet and really nice. But I think he was just a bit lonely. So I just used to flirt with him a little bit, and he used to love it.
Was he UK based?
No, he was in Turkey.
So do you think there's like cultural elements that we need to be careful of as well?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
What we can take as seedy or whatever might actually be more of a cultural thing. So there is that to be mindful of as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, you got it was in a banterish kind of way. It wasn't in any kind of weird sort of like you know, I wasn't uncomfortable or anything like that. It was all, you know, but he just liked it, and then he would give me more work, and he trusted me more. So we almost built this circle of trust, because I'd be all flirty with him and he'd be all flirty with me, and we worked really well together. And the only reason he stopped working with me was because he retired. That was it.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. It sounds like you was tried in your you tried in your hours for flirt. At least it wasn't for sex.
No, at least he was in a different country.
At least he was in a different country, yeah. Oh my God, I have funny. And but yeah, I think look, the bottom line is especially when you're starting out, you're gonna come across all sorts of clients, and you're gonna have to work your way through some bad ones to get to the good ones. But once you get to the good ones, and the good ones that you want to look out for are the ones that give you autonomy. They let you they trust you. You know, the best clients that I've got are the ones that I don't hear from.
Yeah.
They're just letting me get on with it.
Just on that, weird stories. Anybody that is just starting out, people that have been in it for a while will know, stay away from specific sites that say, we're looking for this VA, like, can I mention it?
Yeah.
Is it Upwork?
Upwork, yeah.
God's sake, stay away from that, because when I first signed up for that, this was awful. It was before we moved here, so I was very, 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 very new. And this guy contacted me on Upwork, right? So before we started working together. And he messaged me saying he was in New York, he wanted some admin, like, you know, could I do this, that, and the other? And I was like, absolutely, you know, keen as a puppy. It was middle of the night here, I was still up chatting to him. And he sent me this thing and said, oh, is there any chance you could do this? And he sent me a pornographic video.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And then I was so frightened. Good job he wasn't in the UK, because I think Craig would have killed him.
Oh,
and it traumatized me so much, because I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I've got another client. Like, I'm really excited. You know, he's in New York. He's going to be like he's going to know loads of people. And then this came through. And honestly, so just anybody that's starting out, stay away from Upwork.
What did you do? Okay, disclaimer.
We ages to reply.
we can't say stay away from Upwork, but we would be say be very
mindful.
Be mindful. So what did you do?
I cried. I was so scared. Craig was like, I'm gonna kill him. He's like, he's in New York. I was like, oh, okay.
Did you reply to him?
No, I just blocked him.
See, this is the thing, isn't it? You've just got to be
so careful.
Yeah, so careful. So what's our parting advice? I think my parting advice is, look, when you first start out, don't just take on anyone just because you need the clients. It's so tempting, but it's not worth it. It's not worth your integrity. It's not worth your sanity and your mental health. And you are going to be leaving yourself closed off from potential good clients. And it can do so much damage. So as much as it's difficult, if you get a bad feeling, a gut instinct, if a client's demanding straight away, if they're asking for you to get back to them, you know, within seconds straight away, these are all red flags. And you should definitely steer clear. And you should be doing some sort of a look at this company, and does it align with you? So that would be my advice. What would your advice be?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, do some research on your clients. But I think as well, if you're just starting out and you're not massively confident, become an associate. Join a really nice agency who can, you know, you don't have to do any of your searching or marketing or anything like that. They will just match you with clients that's suitable to your skill set, which will build your confidence. I mean, if I go back to what I'm just so far on since I've been working with you as an associate. I've learned so much along the way, and agencies will be willing to train you on things like that as well. But don't be frightened to say no to nightmare clients. It's on your terms. That's why you decided to have your own business, because you want to do it for yourself. Don't let anybody bully you into working with them, because they're just not nice people, and it will just be a toxic relationship from day one.
And what you just said, on your terms, that's such...
On your terms.
Everything should be on your terms. Charge up front. Do not charge an invoice. Have packages that protects your capacity, it protects your time. Everyone knows where they stand. We do have a free VA membership. So if anyone wants to join that, where you can get resources, it's morethanava.org. I'll put that link in as well. But yeah, I think absolutely. Look, it's all going to be a learning curve. I'm sure you're going to come across clients that are as weird and wacky as the ones we've had. But buddy up, have someone you can trust, have another VA that you can bounce off and say, what do you think of this client? What would you do? Use the forums out there. Darren's VA community is a really, really nice one. And these communities are amazing, so be part of them. You can join ours, I Am More Than a VA, as well on Facebook, and be part of them and reach out to the community. And if you're not sure about someone, I would say ask other people. Would you?
Yeah, listen to your gut as well, because you'll know from a conversation whether that's the person for you to work with or not. But just don't be afraid to say no, because if it's not right, it's not right. There will be others, and you will get there.
Yeah. And if you've got clients that are asking you to make decisions about who they should sleep with, we'll tell you that they're part of a royal family far overseas.
Or if they want to go to Paris, it's an instant no.
Yeah, don't put them on a train to Paris. It'll be your fault when they wake up there in the morning, not knowing why they're there.
I was expecting you to know why.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? Long may the journey continue. But look, the positives about being a VA is it's so diverse. You get to work with such an interesting range of people. You learn a lot as well. Look, we work a lot with business coaching. I feel like I get free business coaching all the time.
Yeah.
And so there are so many amazing benefits to working with a big, diverse group of clients. And like I've just said, I think for me, my dreamy clients are the ones where you don't even hear off them. They just let you get on with it because they trust you. What's your version of a dream client?
To be honest, all of my clients that I work with at the moment are just so lovely. They trust me. They listen to my voice. If they've got an idea and I think it's not going to work, I say that's not going to work. Do it this way. I've just got such a nice group of clients. I do, and they're all completely different. I've got one that's got a renovation business. I've got one that's a property stages. I've got one that's, I've got a domestic abuse charity and developing a VR headset. And so it's just completely different. And I love all of them. And they're just so respectful. And I would love to continue working with them forever.
Do you know what? Actually, talking about this has uncovered something for me. The contrast between a good client and a bad client seems to be the trust element.
Yeah.
So if they don't trust you, they'll show that through constant barrage of questions, being demanding, whether trust is the right word or not, I don't know, but it's more that they'll only ever believe that they can do it right and their way is the best way. Whereas a client that does trust you understands that you might use your own method of reaching the same conclusion. So you're still going to do what they want, but your way, and they're going to trust you to do that. And it's all right thinking, okay, well, eventually this client will trust me. I think there has to be a cut-off. I think after the first month, maybe after the second month, if you're still having issues with a client who's being demanding, asking loads of questions, isn't giving you autonomy, even though you know what the right way is, then making you do it their way, isn't giving you that trust, I think that's a sign that it's never going to happen. They're
never going to work.
Yeah,
because they're trying to change you into them, and that's not the whole reason for working with somebody like a virtual assistant. It's so you can do things differently for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate everybody that's joined today, and Becky, I really hope it's been useful for you, especially if you're just starting out. I'd advise you to jump on the free membership at morethanava.org and join the free Facebook group, I Am More Than a VA, and make sure you're part of those community groups. Charge up front, listen to your gut instinct, and eventually we'll come back and do another episode and see if someone's got some interesting stories to share like what we've had. But yeah, thank you for joining today, Kirsty, and hopefully you'll have a great weekend and a great week next week with your dreamy clients and not any not bad clients. So take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.